I am so glad that you are all here. And I'm really glad because the story that I want to tell you this morning is one of my favorites. And so I was hoping that there would be a few of you to hear this story. So do you want to hear the story? Yeah. Now, I need you to do something for me, and this is great. Where you're sitting is just perfect. Because a lot of things happen in this story, and so we need to keep this space clear so that they can happen the way they need to happen. So I just love the way that you're sitting. Everyone can see. And this story well, sort of. This story actually happens in a chicken coop. Do you know what a chicken coop is? What is it, George? It's a chicken's nest. Yeah, it's a building where chickens lay their eggs and look after their eggs. And so this is our chicken coop here. And this is a story of two chickens. One's name is Zinnia. And Zinnia likes flowers. And so she always wears a bow with a flower on it. Can you see the flower on her bow? So this is Zinnia. And the other chicken is Dot. And she always wears bows with dots on them. So, we have Zinnia and Dot. And they share this chicken coop. They were both very old hens, and they were even more vain. Do you know what vain means? What does vain mean? Well, sort of mean, it's when you think a lot of yourself and you kind of strut around like you're the best in the world. Well, that's what they were like. And they should have been friends because they shared this little coop, but they were not. They rarely spoke to each other. And Zinnia had her eggs in her part of the nest, and she said, "My eggs are the most beautiful eggs in the world. They're as smooth as silk." And Dot, not to be outdone, said, "My eggs are the most beautiful. They shimmer like pearls." And Zinnia, of course, said, "Mine are like alabaster." And Dot said, "Mine are as pure as new fallen snow." And this went on, and they fussed and fussed because they both believed they had the most brilliant, the most perfect eggs. Well, Dot then said to Zinnia, "When my eggs hatch, my chicks will be as gorgeous as their mother." And she jumped down and started to strut across the floor of the coop. Well, Zinnia said, "Oh, your chicks will be nothing compared to mine. Mine will be beautiful and perfect." And she jumped down onto the coop floor and spread her feathers for all to see how beautiful they were. Well, while they were busy doing that, they didn't notice that a weasel appeared at the window of the coop and noticed that they were not paying any attention to their eggs. And he saw his chance. And he crashed through the window, and he stole all the eggs. And he stole all the eggs, and it was poultry pandemonium. And then he was gone. Zinnia and Dot picked themselves up, and they looked around and thought, well, everything looks okay. But then they went back up to their nest and went, oh no, he's stolen all of our eggs. And Zinnia said, it's all your fault, Dot. If you hadn't been strutting around on the floor, this wouldn't have happened. And Dot said, well, I wouldn't have left my nest if you hadn't been so miserable in the first place. And they started fighting with each other again. And then, all of a sudden, they heard this gentle bump. And out rolled onto the floor one egg. And they both looked at this one egg. And at the same time they said, that's my egg! And they both jumped down to head for it. And the fight began. And they were pushing at each other and pushing at each other and not really paying any attention to the egg, just fighting with each other for all they were worth. And all of a sudden, a dove appeared at the window, hearing all this commotion going on, and said to them, please, please don't fight. Can't you see that egg is getting cold? That egg has to stay warm, or the baby chick won't survive. And she said to them, can't you learn to share? And Zinnia and Dot looked at each other. Share? Never! But the egg was getting cold. And so they both picked it up and put it in the nest, and then both tried to sit on the same egg. And they were pushing against each other and trying to get over top of it, still complaining the whole time that it was their egg and not the others. I'll sit on it first. No, I will. And then finally an icy silence filled the air as these two big fat hens got in on top of the egg. An icy silence filled the air. There wasn't a word. They weren't speaking at all. And then, after a little bit of time, Dot said, when that egg hatches, we'll know that it's my chick because it will look just like me. And Zinnia said, oh yes, we'll know whose it is because it will look just like me. Maybe. Anyway, finally, tired of quarreling, they just fell back into silence and wouldn't talk to each other, wouldn't look at each other, just sat on this egg. And after a couple of days, the dove stopped by again and said, to see how things were going, to see if this egg had hatched yet, and it hadn't. And she said, you look so bored, why don't you sing some songs? Or why don't you tell some stories? And Zinnia looked at the dove and said, the only story I'll tell is leaving this coop with my baby chick. And Dot said, no, the only story I'll tell is me leaving this coop with my baby chick. And then they sat in silence, brooding over what lay ahead. And the dove left discouraged. Meanwhile, that weasel, who had now eaten all those eggs, remembered that he had seen one more egg back in that coop. And he thought he would come and see if he might be able to get that last egg. And he thought, maybe I'll eat those two old hens while I'm at it. Zinnia and Dot got more and more irritable, and they started to complain. Stop humming, Zinnia said. Stop wiggling, Dot said. Move over, they both said to each other. And as they were pushing at each other, all of a sudden, a fly flew through the window and buzzed around. And they're watching this fly buzzing around and buzzing around. And it landed right on Dot's beak. And Zinnia spread her wing and went to bat the fly. The fly flew away and she batted Dot right in the beak with her wing. Well, we know what happened. They jumped down on the floor and they started to fight, and they were wrestling back and forth and rolling over the wooden floors. And the weasel saw his chance and he jumped through the window and was diving for the egg. And all of a sudden, Zinnia and Dot froze and they turned on the weasel. One of them on his back and the other one on his neck. And they fought, and they fought, and they squawked, and they clucked, and finally they heard a yelp, and the weasel disappeared and ran away. And Zinnia and Dot checked, and their egg was still there. And they said, "Who would have thought that we could be so brave?" And Dot said, "One hen couldn't have done this without the other." And then Zinnia said, "It was lucky that we were both here." The thought made both of them cackle so hard that they cried. They thought it was so funny. And then all of a sudden, Dot said, "Shh, listen." And they could hear tap, tap, tap. Something was moving inside the egg. And they both turned and looked and watched as that one single egg started to crack. And it seemed like hours and hours that they waited until finally the egg broke open. And there was a little baby chick. And Zinnia said, "He's perfect." And Dot said, "He's gorgeous." And then Zinnia said, "His beak looks just like yours, Dot." And Dot said, "His feet look just like yours, Zinnia." And the baby chick cheeked back at these four eyes looking down at him. And Zinnia and Dot both said together, "He's perfect." Never, ever before was a baby chick so loved. Growing up with two mother hens. And Zinnia and Dot didn't always get along, but they learned to be friends. And on the most important thing, their baby, they agreed 100%. He was the loveliest, most brilliant, most perfect chick in the whole world. Yeah, I see that fly came back. I wonder why Zinnia and Dot didn't like each other. What do you think? Because the nest was too small? Yeah. I wonder how they felt. Could I have the fly, please? I wonder how they felt when the weasel came back for that last egg. I wonder how they felt. Happy that you didn't get the egg, yeah. Megan? Oh, how did they feel when the weasel came back for that last egg? you're not going to get that egg. They were really protected. I wonder how they felt when they saw that baby chick for the first time. That's just I wonder how they felt when they saw that baby chick. Happy? Maybe surprised? Yeah, and it looked like both of them. Wow. I wonder what happened that made them become friends.
Because they were happy that they both raised the chick, and that, well, if you, they learned a lesson, if you don't have friends, then sometimes you're going to get your thing that is really precious to you.
Yeah, that friendship helped to keep what was precious, isn't it? That's great. Well, that's our story today, and we're going to sing a song now, and I'd love you to stay and sing it with us. It's